Okay, now it is time to do some painting, which is going to be really fun. Just showed the film for the first time, and this is actually right here is what we're going to be sending out to Trace in the next letter. If you don't know how the letters work, whenever we find one of these sketches of my grandmother's, like this one right here, this is the one from uh, Portage. This is the sketch she made, and this is the whole adventure. It's an actual physical letter. It's really fun. But we have these things that you can hold up to like a window or something like that and trace. And then this QR code will take you to tutorial kind of like this where you can then paint along. But next month, or well, I guess the next one that we find, this is going to be what I show you how to paint. So if you're not already on the letter, now is a great time to do it. You can find it on the Trailbound Sketches website or this little QR code thing. You just take a picture of that or turn your phone on. I think that'll take you right to the sign up, but I'll show you that at the end as well. Just shamelessly trying to get you into some more painting. Okay, so today we are going to be doing some really fun sketches. This is the sketchbook from the let's move all this out of the way. This is the sketchbook from the trip. This is actually one of those sketches that kind of got turned into one of those overlays. There's horses, and I was thinking we'd do kind of a fun mountain scene as well. That seemed like that would be a good one. Although a lot of times my sketchbooks do have all kinds of stuff. Like here's one of the big eagles we saw on the Flatirons. That was a really cool experience. Or even where did that little chipmunky thing go? This one, yes, yellow-bellied marmot. It was really fun to sketch. But I was thinking today I was going to sketch some mountains, and I really want to show you just how simple it is. So we're going to go from start to finish through all of this, and we're going to sketch something just like this. A lot of color, a lot of vibrance, but just a really fun sketch, and kind of make something as colorful as it feels. So here we go with that. Step one, get some paper, got some pens, some supplies. I've got a brush here, some water. That is key, turns out, in watercolor. And I have a brush, and then I've got a pen. The trick with pens is to make sure it's something that is waterproof. If you put something that is water soluble, it's going to get nice and all over the place. I think I'll use a 0.7 here, but just going to make a little box. That's always how I start these things out usually. It actually came from doing this. When I do these, I need some kind of bounding within a page, and so I like to extend that even if I'm just doing a little tiny sketch like this. A lot of times on big sheets of paper, I get a little intimidated, and so I'll actually make my own little tiny sheet of paper within the big sheet of paper just to kind of break that down a little bit. Nice way to do it. Okay, a little bit here. Very loose all over the place line. You can see this is not perfect. But the next thing we're going to do is we're going to actually kind of outline a little bit of our mountains here. And I'm not going to make an exact copy of that other mountain that I did. I'm actually going to kind of just be loose because I want to show you how simple that is. So I'm actually I'll start, how will I do this one? Why don't I do I'll do a little field here. So I'll do a little something like this. I'll maybe put a horse on it. Maybe you can see kind of close up. And then maybe I'll put another one, maybe a straight line, straight back, something like that. And then maybe some trees. So just kind of some jagged lines. Now, if this piece feels scary, you're not alone. This is often one of the scariest parts, just outlining something. But a lot of times these sketches, like this one, it will just start with these very simple outlines, and it won't look like much of anything until you color it in. It's like the difference between, Sunday comics in the paper and normal ones. It seems fancier, but that's just because it has color. Now, another little, let's see, a mountain somewhere in here, probably, let's do, how are we gonna do this? Yeah, let's do similar mountains to what I did. So I'll probably maybe put a little hill here on this one, and I'll let it work its way up, like something like that. Your shapes can be totally different too. It's not gonna make too much of a difference, and I'll show you why in a second. And then let's put maybe another mountain kind of coming down, and then maybe one final big jagged one up like this. There we go. How's that? Maybe even a tinier one like here. Ta-da! There we have it. This is all it takes. And honestly, it is this quick. If you're ever trying to sketch in the field, don't worry about getting it perfect there in the moment. Even if you can just do something as simple as this, that is enough. That's what my grandmother did. Like her field sketches weren't anything too wild. Maybe something like this, and she'd take it back and she'd fill those in. But that's all it really takes. It seems like, a photo is so much simpler, but if you can, this is such a great way to do it. And then maybe I'll even add some little people or a horse or something in there, but I'll do that. I'll do that later. If you want, you could add some shapes up here. Maybe we have some snow on this one, so maybe get a little bit of some lines, but you don't need to do that. You can kind of pick and choose later on depending on how it feels. But I'll just get some little kind of snow lines just to remember where they are. Okay, how's everybody feeling? Good? Concerned? Nervous? If that's the case, that's good. Paintings are always scary. I don't know who like who gets nice and zen about it. It's wonderful. I love paintings, but it's a little bit like a run or something for me where it's like the journey is so hard to start. I'm so happy when it is happening. I'm very much in the flow and I'm more relaxed afterwards, but there's anything could happen when you start one of these. So it's almost a little nerve-wracking. All right. I am actually going to add a little person down here. I might add a little horse, maybe a little person. I'm going to keep them small because I don't want to have to deal with a figure too much. I basically just kind of draw a little person like that. Let me show you up close too. This is how complex you need to be. That's it. There you go. Little person. That's all you really need. So tape this thing back down so it actually stays where I want it to. And then I think it's going to be time to jump into the actual painting here. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually add a little bit of white up here. But it's not white, we're going to add slightly off white. You can kind of see up there, these mountains, they have just a little bit of off white because unless your eyes are kind of burning from the sun, nothing is pure white. So there's a little bit of blue, and I'm just adding a touch of water to it just to kind of try to get that perfect consistency. You're almost just like scraping a little bit of blue off the palette, but I want it pretty opaque, which means kind of transparent. I'm just going to add a little bit here. And it doesn't matter if I kind of get it right. I'm adding just kind of some in where the shadows or the valleys might be. And the reason I'm doing this now is because I can paint over it, but also this is what helps take shape. Like if I'm actually looking at the mountains, yeah, I might try to make it a bit more accurate, kind of see where I'm seeing, but this is going to help kind of determine what goes where and how it all shakes in and fits together. There we go. That's as fancy as that needs to be. And the next part we're going to do here is going to be maybe filling in this mountain way in the back, which that one could also be very snowy. So we'll use some of the same blue. Just adding not all the way to the top, but maybe just a little bit to the edge, something kind of like this. Trying to keep those edges a little bit separate, but at this point in the painting, you can kind of do whatever you want with pretty minimal consequences. Okay, here we go. How's that looking? So this is the cerulean blue. Good call on that one. It's like my kind of go-to. We're gonna now work down here because it's all about the dryness. In Colorado, when I was painting, that was not an issue. Basically, this would be instantly dry. In fact, it might even be dry before my brush hits the paper. It was incredible what it's like painting in the Alpine. I'm in Alaska right now, just a little different, humidity-wise. So I'm gonna get some yellow, and I think we're gonna paint one of these big yellow fields that you kind of see in that film. Just I think they might have been dandelions even, but just like a stunningly yellow field. So I'm gonna add a big swath of yellow here. Yellow is one of those colors too. If you're willing to get colorful, yellow can be your friend. It is a hard color to work with. It is kind of bright. It's a little bit garish, but if you can learn to work with yellow, it is a great way to kind of bring color out. And you can do it like this. I've got my yellow there. Now I'm grabbing a bit of green, and I'm just going to add a stripe of green down there and let those two mix together. It's not that I don't want the yellow, but I kind of like the combination of the green and the yellow better than I do green or yellow. It's nice and dynamic that way, kind of creates some cool looks, but also yellow on its own is just a bit much. It's like pure birthday cake frosting or something. I like it, but I like it in context. You can also come back in, you can add yellow below as well if you need to kind of fill anything out. It works good below, it works good above, but it is a tough one to work with. The reason I'm adding that now too is I kind of want that to dry because these layers are going to be a little bit darker around it as well. Now, speaking of layers that are going to be darker or lighter, let's do the kind of same thing up here with these little mountains. I might even grab the same green that I was already working with. I think it's a sap green, and I'm just working up, over, up, just kind of filling in those little saw teeth that I painted in. If you wanted, you could literally just go like a big old highlighter swoosh because this is all going to be darker, so it will kind of cut it out, but force a habit here. And then maybe I'll come in with that yellow. Reduce, reuse, recycle. It applies for paint too. Just scoot a little bit down, a little bit over. There we go. It might look light, but that's okay. That is lovely. You can also, if you want, you can even add a little bit of that blue. Maybe mix it with your green if you want to. If you want to cut it down, or even a touch of dark blue, and you could always add a little bit to the edge, this bottom, kind of where the shadows of the trees are going to be, and just leave it alone. It'll create the look that you kind of need. There we go. This is turning out really fun. I like where this one is going. Okay. Doing kind of the finger test to see how dry stuff is. It's feeling decently dry up here. That's not bad. So why don't we start to work through some of these mountains? We might have to do them kind of in order like this, like closest to furthest, just to kind of get everything to stick together. So maybe what we should do is our sky here. There's a couple different ways you can do a sky. If you want, we could have like a real kind of stormy, dark, cloudy sky. We could have a nice blue one. Pure blue is probably the easiest thing to do. You just lay it down, it'll sit there. I'm kind of feeling one of these dark, stormy Colorado skies. So I think that's actually what I'm going to do here, but you can do whichever you want. It is kind of a sunny day though, so keep that in mind. Maybe not like a pink, pink, pink sky. Okay, I'm adding some water here. Just got a little bit of water. I'm going to put a stripe of water right in the middle of all of this. And look at that. Absolutely invisible. But the reason I'm doing that is it'll kind of help stuff flow, and I want my sky to be very fluid. A little bit of indigo here. Don't always use too much indigo within my paintings. This is about as dark. This is the closest I get to a black. But with these dark skies, especially when they're kind of in the distance, it is dark, dark, dark. And here we go. We're going to kind of basically paint all of these lines. We're going to outline all of this in one fell swoop. And it's going to look a little something like this. Just moving forward. Honestly, I really don't even need a pen line because indigo is so dark that it would just absolutely, cut through any pen. So if I don't like the shape of my mountains, now is my chance to change it. Right over top. And there we go. Something like this. Trying to connect all of those lines to that wet line that I just put there because I do want that flowy, flowy goodness. There we go. Something like that. Coming back in, maybe with a little bit of water just to kind of move that over. But I do kind of like where that line is because it kind of does give that cloud look. There you go, a little bit more water. Maybe I'll actually add some of that indigo up top, and I'll come in with just some water to push it around. There we go. A little bit more. This is just water going in, and I think I'm just gonna leave it. Something like that. How's that looking? Might work. I see already this is dried, so I might have to come back in just the repair, the repair side of things. When it comes to clouds, or at least sky, unless I'm doing some real complex kind of cloud work or something, what I like to try to aim for is to have the entire sky wet at the same time. That's kind of an easy way to know if you're gonna have a smooth-ish sky. I'll add maybe a bit more dark up here. But, that's kind of what I'm aiming for, so that's why I redid that. It's already dried by the time I was done with this. There we go. But now, the entire cloud, it's all wet at the same time. We shouldn't have any hard lines, which is what I'm trying to avoid. It's coming together. Kind of a stormy scene. This is a fun one. This is why it's so fun sometimes to have a bit of an outline and paint it in, but just feeling almost like you're painting in this world around yourself. All right. So we got our little person right there. got our whole kind of forest down here. Let's see, that is still just a touch wet, maybe? I'm gonna risk it. Let's see. Worst case scenario, my mountains become my trees. So with these mountains, I have a little bit of snow up here, and you can kind of see right there, a little bit of snow. And this cool thing happens with the alpine. The snow kind of it's white, but then as it melts, then it's brown, but then it kind of becomes purple where it's dark, and then the green slowly creeps in and it gets dark green. So it's kind of this cool, like a little rainbow of the alpine, really. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to paint along with it. So I'm going to start with some burnt sienna, or is this burnt sienna? Yeah, this is burnt sienna, which is kind of that nice gray, that nice brown. You can see where my mind is at. It's nice brown right here, and I'm just going to kind of start filling in some of those areas where you can see I put a little bit of some kind of guidelines, but they are just that. They're very, very, very loose. If I want to put some in the middle like I do right there, I can just do it. There's no there's no reason not to, and it's better sometimes to be more, uh, what would the term be? To be more, like, cautious. Leave more white than you think you need, because you can always cut that out. If you want less, it is an easy thing to fix. The watercolor will be happy to assist you. So I'm just gonna add a little bit up here, and then you can see I'm kinda carving down through some of it. There we go. So that's just the start, though. While it's still wet, moving on, I'm now gonna jump into some purple. You do have time on this though, so don't worry about rushing too much, but now I'm gonna jump into some purple, adding a little bit here, a little bit there. There we go. So a little bit of purple, going brown, purple, and then if I need, I can kind of move it back up just a little bit, something like that. And now let's get into our greens. A little bit of green here, just pushing over, kind of got a mountain turning into a hill on this side at least. And then all I need is some color that is darker than these trees, because I want the trees to stand out. So that's all you really got to think about is it could be a dark blue, it could be a dark blue mixed with a green, it could be a purple, whatever you really want. Something kind of cool, but something darker than these trees. And then I'll come back through, and now I'll just kind of tie that off. Really, you're just working through these layers. It's layers upon layers. It's kind of I don't do much, but I feel like it's kind of like sewing and quilting, which my grandmother did a lot of. She's actually a very famous quilter. She's a great watercolorist, but she's a famous quilter. And she definitely had a sense of how the watercolor and the quilts and all of that connected. And a lot of the quilts, the inspiration were in her sketchbooks and vice versa. So it's kind of cool to see the connection between the overlapping layers, but also the overlapping almost like the fabric-like connection there as well. Voila! Beautiful. So we're gonna wait for that to dry just a little bit, and while we do it, let's jump down here to this little bit right here. And if I am moving too fast for you, this will all be pausable here. I do kind of tend to move pretty quick, but I think that's just learned experience from years of painting with kids and people and weather and being on the top of a mountain and having a thunderstorm roll in on me. I definitely tend to rush. But I also find that some of my best paintings happen rushed. The ones that actually have as much time as I want to spend on don't always turn out that well. I don't know what it is. Are you the same way? Am I alone in that one? A little bit of yellow here, mixing it with that green and that blue and making a very unique color. I'm going to paint that through here on this field. We're going to kind of work our way down here. Same deal. It can be lighter on top, but we just need something slightly darker than what's below. So I'll maybe grab some dark blue, add that to our mix, and then I can kind of work our way in. Just layers upon layers. There we go. Maybe a bit of green here now. The human eye can see more shades of green than any other color, so don't be afraid to really, really dab that green in. Got a little person there. I'll probably not paint quite over them, because I think I'll make them a nice bright color, something warm, just so they stand out. And just like that. There we go. How's that looking? Lovely. Okay. Now could also be a good time too to add a little shadow on a person. You can just grab a little bit of indigo that you have on your palette. Make sure it's nice and light though. Make sure you get some good water to kind of water that down, and then you could just add a little tiny shadow to a little person like this if you want. There we go. Now they're standing. If they don't have shadow, I think it means they're a vampire. So you got to make sure you add those in there. You might even add just a touch of water too. Sometimes a little bit of water adds a really interesting texture when the backfield is at this level where it's mostly dry, but not quite all the way dry. It's like this perfect opportunity to kind of get these blooms you can see kind of exploding out there. I might add one, maybe one too many, but it's a cool effect. All right, how is all this looking? Oops, let me just trip over myself here. The dangers of the studio. What I'm waiting for is for this line to dry, because once this is dry, then I can kind of start to work through a bunch of these. It's gonna be hard to do so until this is dry. If you're never quite sure what to work on next, you can just wait until everything is dry. You can go one layer at a time. That is a totally acceptable and fine way to do it. It's okay to be slightly slower on watercolor. Although I will say, letting things mix, being a bit messy, if you're willing to kind of just let the stuff be risked. At this point, I don't want to do anything too crazy because we already did all this work. But if you're willing to take some risks, when mountains bleed together or when things move around, this does make for some really, really, really cool effects. But if you're not quite sure what layers to go, usually you go kind of the front foreground to the background and then light to dark. That's a simple enough way to kind of think about it. But the beauty of watercolors, as things get more and more and more and more and more complex, your your brain just figures out how to do it and eventually it becomes like a dance where your hands know what to do and you can kind of just get lost in the moment. You can spend a lot more time looking, a lot more time kind of enjoying it, almost like one of those ballroom dancers who can kind of just get lost in their own thoughts of the music because their feet know every single step of the way. It's the same thing. It's just, you know, you're using your fingers instead. All right, so we got all this. Just testing, just checking. It's still a little bit wet. Maybe you will come back here and add just a couple little fun bits. I'm adding a bit of brown, maybe a bit of indigo. I'm just gonna add just a couple little bits of texture to these far back mountains, just for fun. Not sure if it's needed. Really, there's like a lot of stalling. The procrastination of painting. That's the book I should really write. Also, if you have any questions too, feel free to reach out. We're on Instagram or Facebook or the website, but it's really fun to be able to do a lot of this. And like I said, this letter, if you're not already signed up, it's totally free. It's just a really cool way to be able to paint it forward because of the way my grandmother, painted it forward to me. I think the world, frankly, needs more letters, more good mail, more good news. So those have been really fun to send out. You can paint it forward with this. We don't actually let anybody pay for this. So it does cost shipping, but I want it to be a gift. But if you want to give a gift as well, you can. We have a spot where you can actually pay for somebody else's letter. So you can pay for a year somebody else's letter, and that helps us bring more people in. I think some of it's on here. This little pica. Like I said, you can scan that or find it on the website. But it's really fun and it's great too to hear what you like. My grandmother sketched just about everywhere. So if there's certain places where you're like, I want to see more tropical sketches or I want to learn how to sketch the city or mountains or certain animals, chances are she sketched it. And that really helps us be able to get a sense of like, okay, maybe we lean into this a little bit. Or if you have any like National Geographic connections and you're like, this would make a really cool series or whatever it is, you just let us know. Um, it's myself and Jen who is kind of the wizard behind a lot of this, putting it together. But it's just so fun to be able to share these sketches in this way in particular. All right, this is probably dry enough now. I'm gonna risk it. Here we go. A little bit of, let's see. So this is way snowier up here. So I think we're still doing the same kind of burnt sienna at the top. It's kind of copy and paste or rinse and repeat. We're just adding a little bit of these A little bit of these same patterns, although they might be a little smaller because this mountain is further back, but it's really the same pattern, so don't worry too much about. You've done it before. This is that dance I was talking about. Okay, same over here. Let's do a little bit of maybe purple. Just purple blending into that brown. It is just a lovely way to do it. Okay, all those jets above me. Alaska has some of the most small planes on Earth, and we happen to live very close to one of those airports. So I forget to hear about it sometimes. It's like my brain just sort of tunes it out, but I do forget that every time I'm on a call or doing a tutorial, it's like, oh yeah, sounds like there's a jet engine above me, and usually because there is. Got a little bit of green now. Just adding that right over the edge if we need. And then maybe we lean into that purple in a big way. Maybe we really kind of use that as the thing that separates these two mountains. Something like that. Oh, actually, there's a lot of purple in this mountain too. I'm gonna have to use something else. There we go. Let's just add a bit up here, and then let's dig back in, maybe with a bit of dark blue. Let's see how this goes. A little bit in here, just scooting through, but beautiful. These Colorado mountains in particular are just so stunning. I don't know. I don't know anywhere that I've seen so many colors in these mountains. It's just they really have like there's something very unique about that. As a person who lives in a place with some really excellent mountains, there's something cool about those Colorado ones. And the burnt sienna is, let's see, I think, what is this one? This one is either Windsor, no, not Windsor Newton. This one is either M. Graham or maybe Daniel Smith. I think, to be honest, I'm not the best about picking exact colors, but I do find that at a certain level, a lot of the artist grade colors are very similar. They certainly have things that people would prefer. So once you find it, I feel like a lot of artists kind of lock in. But I do find um, that when it comes to paint, it's a lot more of a mental thing than it is a physical thing. And I'll probably be shooting myself in the foot for future sponsorships, but between you and me, I do find that I almost have like a placebo around paint. If I know that it's Winsor& and Newton or, maybe it's Daniel Smith or something, if I know that's a good quality one, I almost feel better and I'm willing to be more colorful. And I feel actually what almost matters more than the brand of paint is how much you take off the palette. So whatever it is that you're willing to take more off the palette and put it down, have those confident brush strokes, that's what counts. And maybe that's Crayola because it costs nothing, and so you're willing to actually paint with it. Or maybe it is one of these really, really nice paints, which are more expensive because they have more pigment in them. That's the difference between like a Daniel and Smith here or a Crayola. I mean, this has just a lot of pigment in it, and so a little bit goes a lot more way. But whatever it is, whatever you feel like you can be colorful with is what you need. That's what counts. Um, all right. So now I think it might be time, speaking of some real bright one, let's maybe add a little bit of color to our little person right here while we're waiting for this piece to dry. And this is going to be kind of the last piece right there. So my little person, I'm going to add just a touch of red, I think. My little people are often red, and that's because I used to have a red jacket, but it's also because, boy, do they stand out well in a little way, but also they make a pretty big difference on a landscape. There we go. That's all it took. Now, a real quick one, and once this is done, why don't we do a little sketchbook tour of the Boulder one? But a really fun thing to notice here is when it comes to a composition, if we just had a big field and then a little person, it wouldn't feel quite as full of depth. But if you can kind of layer these things, you get a really good sense of how big a mountain like that would be. By putting a little hill here, we have a little hill and a little person. We know how big a person is, but we know that this hill is in front of this field. So we now know that this field is enormous. And because we know this field is enormous and those trees are here, we know those trees are really big. And then this mountain is even bigger than those trees, and we know that mountain is bigger than those. So it's kind of one of those things. Next time you're trying it, it's just that's a great way to kind of stack depth if you ever want to give give something like that a go. Because if you don't have your little person, it's kind of hard to gauge just how big you're looking at. But little subject can make a big difference. All right, how is the dryness of this doing? Not great. Well, I might just add a little bit of introduce a little bit of dryness to the situation. Just dry things out. Oh, kind of wish I didn't do that. That's okay. Like I said, I rush. There we go. Okay. That'll still look good. I'll just give it a moment or two. It's not quite dry. And then, like I said, yeah, why don't we look through the sketchbook here in just a moment? I think that would be a really, really fun way to do it. Okay. That should do just about fine. Let's give this a go. Let's see what happens. Yeah. So the next piece is I'm going to add a little bit of water, and I'm going to make this kind of a dark mountain in the shadow. So I'm going to add a little bit of brown, something like that, maybe right in here. Just want to show there's different ways to do mountains as well. Then maybe a little bit of purple down below. There we go. And then finally, maybe up top here, just seeing how wet things are. Yeah, they're still pretty wet, that's fine. Maybe a touch of green, just somewhere in there. But mostly, let's get some of that dark blue, I think. A little bit of dark blue, just to kind of show that shadow, especially because we've got these nice dark storm clouds. It kind of shows that there are some big clouds out there. Just trying it out. Nice dark blue right over through here and down. Just kind of feathering it out. There we go. That's kind of a fun way to do it. Maybe I'll add a bit more water now that those paths have all been created. And voila. Okay, kind of a fun one. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to leave this to dry. I'm going to scoot it out of the way here. And let's look through some sketchbooks, and then just a moment, this should be dry, and we can see how it actually looks, because these things do dry lighter, so it's kind of hard to gauge actually how it's going to turn out. All right. Peel off some paint. And here is the sketchbook of the Colorado trip. It's partially finished, both because it was a pretty wild experience, but let me just see if I can scoot this up. Brace yourself. Here comes some shaky camera work. And a messy, messy, messy studio, so don't look and don't judge. We look and we don't judge. Okay, so here is the sketchbook of that whole trip so far. Let's see, it kind of starts here. This is a ball, not a golden eagle. And I saw some of these on here. You can kind of see way, way, way up here. There's just a couple little ones sketched in. This is actually one of Lou's sketches. It was kind of hard to see at first because it was like when it was just lines, it was just, maybe I have another example over here, but it was just, do I not? Yeah, it looked kind of like this. It was just lines. This is almost exactly what it looked like. Her lines are a bit more bold, and that's all you could see. And so I actually had no idea what that one was until we found Royal Arch, which was much more visible. Kind of looked something like this. That one is way, way, way easier to find. So found this one. Kind of embarrassed to show, but this is way out of order. This is later when we were at Marble. Is one of those horses we saw. Maybe it was a similar one to the ones she sketched. I don't know. I don't know how in the family those horses are kept. Here are some of these really cool ponderosa pine cones. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful tree. And that's the old one that's actually right here. But just really wild to think something like that could come from a pine cone. But these really just lovely needles, and the smell. Oh my gosh, I wish this was scratch and sniff, but the smell is just amazing. And then of course the colors of all of that. This was attempt number 1, I think. It might have been attempt number 2. But sometimes they turn out well. Sometimes they don't quite hit the mark. So it's no shame to turn around and try another. I guess I went back. Why did I go back? Anyway, skipped a couple pages, I guess. Here, we'll go in order here. I'll come back to these ones. There we go. So here is the full setup. You can see I was using those 8 colors that I really love, which I always forget the name, so I came up with the ones that actually remind me. So there's bright yellow, sap green, sky blue, deep blue, nice red, cookie brown, mountain purple, and night sky indigo. I think like the official colors are, let's see. I think we're looking at I don't even know if I put this. I think it's cadmium yellow, sap green, cerulean blue, ultramarine blue, maybe lake red, or maybe cadmium red. Um, Trying to avoid some of the cadmiums because I think that's a pretty sketchy metal. That is burnt sienna. That is maybe dioxanine purple or something like that, and that's indigo. Then little pencil, loving these little mechanical ones from With, brush and some water. And then here's that sketch. It's kind of fun to see it in real life. Very colorful, but boy, that was a hot day. I can just see how quickly everything dried on that one. Here's another unfinished one of the horses, but this is how they start. Really, it's like you're just making yourself your own coloring book, and then you fill that thing right in. It turns out to be way scarier to start something like this than it is to fill it in. Me sketching on the bench, did that one afterwards, and then here are those big trees, kind of blocking out things, but really not too much has changed since. It was so cool to be able to sit where she sat. Honestly, just to be able to paint with my grandma, even though it's just lifetimes apart, is still such a special thing. If you're ever wondering about, is it worth doing a sketch outside or something like that, just know somebody might be painting along with you. You don't even realize it. Those I can't show you though. This is some secrets from that next video that we will be putting out at some point. And then working our way back. Oh yeah, here we go. Some of these cute, cute, cute little things. Yellow-bellied marmots. Their whistles terrify me. They sound like little lifeguards out into the, just making the little screams. But little lifeguards somewhere out in the mountains. And then here is that other view that she sketched that I painted in. And here's Larry, who such a cool guy, but also just so wild to have that experience just randomly, just driving down the street. Happened to catch him. Okay, there is the loose sketchbook look. And here is how things are turning out so far. Ta-da! Little sketch, similar colors, kind of made up view, but also this feels the spot. Here you go. Here's what it kind of looks like all together. Still a little bit of drying that'll happen here, so it'll lighten up just a tad. But I love that shadowy mountain look. And our little person there. So that's how I would paint a Colorado mountain. And if you have any questions, anything else like that, do let us know. But also, don't be a stranger. There's tons of ways to keep in touch, from the letters to the actual tutorials. This is a really fun one for this next one, so make sure you sign up before that happens because I can't wait to paint this one in with people. But mostly, hope you're doing well. And if you get a chance, paint it forward whenever you can.